The Las Vegas sun blazed mercilessly as Officer James Miller patrolled downtown, his badge gleaming with authority, while his heart darkened with prejudice. Each step he took echoed with the weight of his corrupted power. Having served 15 years on the force, Miller had mastered the art of targeting minorities while keeping his record technically clean through a network of complicit colleagues and convenient paperwork errors. That evening the streets buzzed with unusual energy as high roller celebrities and tourists flooded the strip for the upcoming championship fight. Miller despised these nights, when the city's carefully maintained social hierarchy seemed to blur beneath the neon lights, his frustration mounting as he watched wealthy black athletes and entertainers commanding respect that he believed they didn't deserve. The sight of Mike Tyson approaching the MGM Grand sent a jolt through Miller's system. The former heavyweight champion walked with the confident grace of a man who knew his worth, wearing a charcoal gray Italian suit that probably cost more than Miller's annual salary. Miller felt his hand instinctively tightening around his baton as childhood memories flooded back. His father's bitter warnings about successful black men and their threat to the natural order. These toxic lessons had shaped Miller into the officer he became, each complaint against him serving as a badge of honor in his twisted worldview. Casino security cameras would later reveal how Miller deliberately positioned himself in Tyson's path, his body language betraying his intentions. Long before the assault, several bystanders sensed the brewing confrontation, their phones already recording, as the corrupt officer squared his shoulders and adjusted his stance. What happened in the next few moments would shape the Las Vegas Police Department to its core and force America to confront its ongoing struggle with systemic racism. Miller noticed how the crowds parted respectfully for Tyson, their admiring glances and excited whispers fueling his resentment. The champion moved with the fluid grace of a predator, his muscular frame barely contained by the expertly tailored suit, his presence commanding attention without effort. Miller remembered watching Tyson's fights in his youth, secretly admiring the raw power, while publicly denouncing him with racial slurs to maintain his status among fellow bigots. The evening air crackled with tension as security cameras tracked Miller's aggressive approach, his years of unchecked authority evident in every movement. Nearby tourists sensed danger, their instincts warning them to distance themselves from the unfolding scene, while still maintaining clear views with their recording devices. Some would later testify about the obvious targeting they witnessed that fateful evening. Tyson noticed Miller too, his fighter's instincts registering the threat, though his expression remained impassive. Years of discipline in and out of the ring had taught him to read hostile intent. He recognized the familiar stance of a man looking to provoke a reaction. The same kind of challenge had faced countless times since achieving success in a world that often resented his rise to prominence. Casino employees, watching through security monitors, recognized both men immediately, several reaching for phones to alert superior officers about Miller's suspicious behavior. But before any preventive measures could be taken, the corrupt officer had committed to his course of action, his decision fueled by years of unchallenged bias and the false confidence of a man who believed his badge make him untouchable. Time seemed to slow as Miller closed the final steps between them, his baton already sliding free from its holder, while Tyson maintained his steady pace forward, neither man breaking stride as destiny drew them toward a confrontation that would soon capture international attention and spark a nationwide conversation about police reform. Dozens of phones recorded from every angle as Las Vegas prepared to witness a moment that would change everything. The sun caught Miller's badge as he planted his feet, the gleam a stark reminder of the authority he had sworn to uphold and chosen to betray. His fingers flexed around the baton as sweat beaded on his forehead, his throat tight with anticipation, while Tyson approached a final few steps, their paths about to collide in a moment that would define both their lives forever. The crowd parted like the Red Sea as Tyson walked past high rollers and tourists, his custom Italian suit, worth more than Miller's monthly salary, reflecting the bright casino lights in a way that seemed to mock the officer's own worn uniform. Miller felt his prejudice surge, watching how even white tourists stepped aside with respect, their phones raised to capture a glimpse of the legend, while memories of his father's toxic teachings echoed through his mind. 20 years earlier, Miller's father had sat him down in their cramped living room, the smell of cheap whiskey heavy in the air, as he warned his son about the dangers of successful black men rising above their station. That conversation planted seeds of hatred that grew stronger with each passing year, festering beneath Miller's badge, until hatred became as natural as breathing. The sight of Tyson commanding such respect made those old wounds burn fresh. Security footage would later show how Miller stalked his target like a predator, his movements calculated and deliberate as he maintained distance while choosing the perfect moment to strike. Nearby casino security guards noticed his unusual behavior, their own law enforcement experience telling them something was wrong. But years of police brotherhood prevented them from intervening, even as they witnessed the beginning of what would become national news. Tyson moved through the space with the practiced ease of a man accustomed to attention, his presence drawing eyes from every direction while maintaining an air of understated power that came from decades of discipline in and out of the ring. His suit, custom tailored by Italian craftsmen, cost upward of $30,000, a fact that would later emerge during the trial as evidence of Miller's targeted harassment of successful minorities. The officer's grip tightened on his Baton knuckles, whitening beneath his black leather gloves as he watched wealthy casino patrons treating Tyson with a deference that Miller believed should be reserved for men like himself. Each step of his polished shoes against the marble floor echoed with mounting tension, while surveillance cameras captured his increasingly aggressive body language. Years of unchecked power had convinced Miller of his invincibility. 17 civilian complaints had vanished from his record through a combination of departmental corruption and victim intimidation. But this evening would prove different, as dozens of phones recorded his approach from every angle, their digital eyes ensuring that this time justice would have its day. Miller felt sweat gathering beneath his collar as he closed the distance between himself and Tyson, his heart pounding with a mixture of hatred and excitement that had become addictive over years of similar confrontations. The weight of his baton offered familiar comfort, while nearby tourists sensed the growing tension, their instincts warning them that something dangerous was about to unfold. The casino lights sparkled off Tyson's diamond tie pin, worth more than Miller's car, another detail that fed the officer's rage as he remembered his father's struggles to provide for their family. While men like Tyson lived in luxury, the champion seemed unaware of the approaching threat. His calm demeanor, a stark contrast to Miller's, barely contained fury. Time slowed as Miller made his final calculations, watching Tyson approach the precise spot he had chosen for their confrontation. Decades of boxing training had given the champion an aura of controlled power that only fueled Miller's determination to assert his authority. Surveillance footage would later show how the officer positioned himself perfectly to claim self-defense, though the dozens of civilian recordings would tell a different story. Each step brought them closer to the moment that would change both their lives forever. Miller could feel his pulse pounding in his ears, drowning out the ambient casino noise as he prepared to remind everyone that his badge gave him power over even the most celebrated champions. His fingers flexed around the baton one final time as Tyson drew within striking distance. Time froze as Miller launched his vicious assault, the baton cutting through the air with practiced precision, aimed directly at Tyson's broad chest, the blow landing with a sickening thud that echoed through the suddenly silent casino. Dozens of phones captured the moment as mothers instinctively shielded their children's eyes while security guards stood frozen in shocked disbelief. Racial slurs spewed from Miller's mouth, each word captured perfectly by nearby surveillance equipment, his voice carrying years of bottled hatred. As he screamed at the former champion to know his place, the crowd gasped collectively, their phones steady, despite trembling hands as they documented every second of the horrific scene unfolding before them. Tyson's expression remained unnaturally calm, his eyes locked onto Miller with an intensity that made hardened security veterans step backward, the champion's decades of discipline evident in his controlled breathing. While Miller continued his tirade, each word digging his legal grave deeper as cameras recorded every syllable. The Baton strike had caught Tyson directly across his expensive suit, leaving a visible mark on the Italian fabric that would later be presented as evidence in court. Nearby tourists from countries around the world stood transfixed by the scene, their recordings automatically uploading to social media platforms, where the incident would soon go viral. Casino security footage captured every angle of the assault, showing clearly how Miller had deliberately positioned himself to attack the unsuspecting champion while maintaining plausible deniability. The officer's body camera mysteriously malfunctioned during the incident, but dozens of civilian phones ensured that truth would prevail. Miller felt his confidence wavering as Tyson remained motionless. After the blow, the champion's eyes, carrying a depth of controlled power that made the officer remember every knockout head witnessed in Tyson's legendary career, sweat began soaking through Miller's uniform as he realized his terrible mistake. The crowd had formed a perfect circle around the scene, their phones creating a wall of digital witnesses as Miller continued shouting each racist phrase, making the situation worse, while Tyson stood like a statue, his muscular frame containing explosive power that everyone knew could end the confrontation in seconds. High above the casino floor, security operators scrambled to contact senior management, their cameras zooming in on Miller's badge number, while facial recognition software identified the corrupt officer in real-time database searches, revealing his history of complaints as the assault continued below. The air grew thick with tension as Miller raised his baton for a second strike, his judgment clouded by years of unchecked racism, and the false security of his badge onlookers held their breath, wondering if they were about to witness the former heavyweight champion unleash his legendary power on the corrupt officer. Every second felt like an eternity as the scene unfolded, surveillance cameras tracking Miller's increasingly aggressive movements, while Tyson remained perfectly still, his composure a stark contrast to the officer's growing panic. Nearby security guards finally broke protocol, reaching for their radios to call for backup as the situation spiraled beyond control. History collided with justice as Tyson swiftly calculated his response, decades of ring discipline evident in his measured breathing, while casino patrons watched in stunned silence, their phones recording every detail of the assault that would soon dominate international headlines. The former heavyweight champion moved with fluid precision, his massive hands reaching for Miller's baton while maintaining eye contact that made the corrupt officer taste raw fear. For the first time in his career, security cameras captured the grace of Tyson's movement as he disarmed Miller with embarrassing ease. Time stood still as Tyson gripped the weapon, his muscular fingers applying precise pressure that made the reinforced polymer crackle with tension. Nearby tourists gasped as the champion snapped the baton into perfect howls, letting the pieces clatter to the marble floor while maintaining his composure. Miller stumbled backward, his false confidence evaporating as he realized the gravity of his mistake. Tyson's calm voice cut through the tension like a razor as he addressed the officer, speaking words that would later be quoted in courtrooms nationwide. "You picked the wrong day, brother, but I'm not giving you the reaction you want." Casino security footage revealed the stark contrast between Miller's trembling hands and Tyson's steady gaze, a champion's experience in handling pressure evident in every controlled breath, while the officer visibly struggled to process how his victim had maintained such dignified restraint. The crowd watched mesmerized as Tyson straightened his tie, adjusting the diamond pin, worth more than Miller's monthly salary, his actions declaring louder than words that he refused to let hatred drag him down to his attackers. Level nearby security guards finally approached their radios, crackling with urgent responses. Sweat soaked through Miller's uniform as reality crashed down around him, his years of unchecked power crumbling beneath Tyson's unwavering stare. The champion's self-control speaking volumes about true strength, while the officer's weakness became evident to every witness recording the scene. High-definition cameras captured the moment Tyson stepped back, creating deliberate distance from his attacker, his voice steady as he announced his intention to press charges, the words sending shivers through the gathered crowd as they realized they were witnessing a pivotal moment in police accountability. Miller's world collapsed as he watched Tyson pull out his phone, the champion calmly dialing 911, While maintaining eye contact that promised consequences beyond physical retaliation, nearby tourists continued recording, ensuring that every second of the officer's downfall would be preserved for posterity. The broken baton lay between them like a symbol of shattered authority, while Tyson spoke clearly to the emergency dispatcher, his words echoing through the casino. "I'm reporting an assault by an officer who needs to learn that power comes with responsibility." The statement would later become a rallying cry for reform. Casino security footage captured every angle of the historic confrontation as Miller backed away from the scene, while Tyson stood his ground, calmly reporting the assault. The surveillance system recorded in crystal clear detail as the former champion provided precise descriptions of the incident to emergency dispatchers. Dozens of smartphones instantly uploaded their recordings to social media platforms, the videos spreading like wildfire across the internet. While Tyson maintained his position exactly where he had been struck, his composure becoming a powerful symbol that would inspire millions. The emergency dispatcher later testified about the remarkable control in Tyson's voice as he reported the crime. Her 15 years of experience had never prepared her for handling a call from a celebrity assault victim who remained so collected while describing a racist attack. Higher resolution cameras mounted throughout the MGM Grand Casino captured multiple angles revealing Miller's history of targeting minorities. The footage showing how he had stalked Tyson for several minutes before the assault, establishing clear premeditation that would later prove crucial in court. Security personnel monitored the unfolding situation through their sophisticated surveillance system, documenting every movement as Miller retreated toward the casino exit, while Tyson provided detailed descriptions of the assault to law enforcement, his measured tone contrasting sharply with the officer's panic. The casino's facial recognition software tracked Miller through the building, matching his image against personnel databases, while recording his increasingly erratic behavior. The technology provided investigators with a comprehensive timeline of events leading up to and following the attack. Within minutes, local news stations began broadcasting the incident, with their helicopters hovering above the MGM Grand. As police units responded to Tyson's call, the champion's continued calm demeanor, creating a powerful narrative about dignity in the face of hatred. Social media exploded with viral videos showing the assault from every possible angle, while Tyson remained rooted to the spot, refusing to be driven away by hatred or fear, his stance becoming a powerful metaphor for resistance against systemic racism. The casino's advanced audio recording system preserved every word spoken during the confrontation, capturing Miller's racial slurs and Tyson's measured responses, providing prosecutors with undeniable evidence that would later ensure justice was served. Time seemed to stand still as Tyson completed his call to emergency services, his presence commanding respect from gathered onlookers, while security footage continued recording every detail of a moment that would soon catalyze nationwide police reform. The internal affairs investigation exploded like a bomb within the Las Vegas Police Department as Miller's extensive history of racial profiling came to light. Decades of buried complaints suddenly surfaced, revealing a pattern of targeted harassment that had been systematically concealed by corrupt colleagues. Federal investigators descended upon the precinct, seizing computers and files that revealed hundreds of deleted reports, each telling a story of minorities who had suffered under Miller's badge, while supervisors looked away, the evidence painting a devastating picture of institutional racism that could no longer be ignored. Officers who had protected Miller for years suddenly found themselves under scrutiny, their own careers hanging by threads as investigators uncovered an elaborate network designed to shield corrupt cops from consequences. Text messages and emails revealed casual racism that had become normalized within certain departments. The investigation expanded beyond Miller, reaching into the highest levels of department leadership as questions arose about how such behavior had continued unchecked for so long. Internal documents showed multiple supervisors had dismissed complaints against Miller despite clear evidence of misconduct. Veteran detectives worked around the clock analyzing years of bodycam footage and surveillance recordings, discovering Miller had specifically targeted successful minorities, his assault on Tyson fitting a pattern that stretched back to his earliest days on the force. Civil rights organizations demanded accountability as new victims came forward, each story adding weight to the case against Miller, while department officials scrambled to contain a scandal that threatened to expose decades of systemic discrimination. The FBI launched a parallel investigation examining Miller's financial records and communications, revealing connections to white supremacist organizations that had infiltrated law enforcement, his bank accounts showing suspicious deposits that coincided with dropped complaints. Department computers yielded deleted emails showing how Miller had coordinated with other officers to ensure his victims' complaints would disappear the evidence, revealing a sophisticated system of intimidation and cover-ups that had protected corrupt officers for years. Las Vegas Police Chief Marcus Rodriguez faced mounting pressure to explain how such behavior had festered under his watch as media outlets broadcast endless loops of Miller attacking Tyson. Public outrage grew with each new revelation about the department's failure to address systemic racism. The investigation triggered a comprehensive audit of all police personnel files, revealing dozens of officers with similar patterns of misconduct, leading to a wave of suspensions and resignations that would reshape the department from within, while federal oversight teams prepared for a complete overhaul of police practices. The courtroom fell silent as Mike Tyson took the witness stand, his measured steps carrying the weight of countless similar incidents that had never seen justice. Cameras captured his commanding presence as he faced the judge, while Miller shrunk visibly in his defendant's chair. Tyson's testimony resonated through the packed courthouse as he described choosing peace over violence, explaining how years of personal growth had taught him that true power lies in restraint, his words reaching millions through live broadcasts that would later become required viewing in police training. Legal experts watched in amazement as Tyson delivered his account with remarkable precision, describing the assault while avoiding emotional manipulation, his testimony painting a vivid picture of systemic racism while maintaining a dignity that made his words impossible to dismiss. Miller stared at the floor as Tyson detailed the officer's history of targeting successful minorities, the champion's composure adding crushing weight to each revelation about the department's culture of corruption that had enabled such behavior to flourish unchecked. Civil rights attorneys present in the courtroom furiously took notes as Tyson articulated the broader implications of the case, his testimony transforming a single assault into a powerful indictment of institutionalized racism that demanded sweeping reforms. The jury hung on every word as Tyson explained his decision to respond with restraint rather than force, describing how his choice aimed to create lasting change rather than momentary satisfaction, his testimony becoming a masterclass in turning victimization into empowerment. National media broadcast every moment as Tyson addressed broader issues of police accountability, his experiences as a prominent black athlete, providing context for systemic problems that had plagued law enforcement for generations. Veterans officers in attendance shifted uncomfortably as Tyson described the fear that even successful minorities feel during police encounters, his words forcing acknowledgement of deep-rooted biases that had long been ignored or denied within law enforcement. The prosecution built their case around Tyson's unwavering testimony, his calm recollection of events, supported by dozens of video recordings that left no doubt about Miller's motivations or the department's failure to address repeated misconduct. Time seemed to stand still as Tyson concluded his testimony, leaving the courtroom in stunned silence, his final words about the possibility of positive change echoing through halls, while Miller sat defeated, knowing his career and freedom were forfeit. Justice thundered through the courtroom as Judge Sarah Martinez delivered her scathing verdict, her voice carrying decades of legal experience, while condemning Miller's abuse of power and the system that enabled him. Security cameras recorded the historic moment as the corrupt officer faced the consequences of his actions. The 5-year prison sentence fell like a hammer, each count read aloud, detailing Miller's crimes against not just Tyson, but countless minorities who'd suffered under his badge. Civil rights violations, assault, and official misconduct charges stacked one after another, while the former officer stared blankly ahead. Mandatory racial sensitivity training became part of the sentence, though Judge Martinez noted acidly that Miller would have plenty of time to reflect on his prejudices. While serving his prison term, the courtroom buzzed with approval as additional penalties stripped him of his pension and law enforcement certification. Evidence from the Internal Affairs investigation revealed over 200 documented instances of racial profiling, each case adding weight to the prosecutor's demand for maximum sentencing. While Miller sat slumped in defeat, his own bodycam footage portraying years of systematic harassment. The judge's voice cut through the tension as she addressed broader issues of police accountability, her verdict establishing precedents that would influence similar cases nationwide, while department officials squirmed uncomfortably in their seats, facing questions about institutional racism. Tyson watched from the gallery as Miller was led away in handcuffs, the former officer's swagger replaced by shuffling steps, while bailiffs escorted him toward a future behind bars. His conviction sending shockwaves through police departments across America. Legal experts hailed the verdict as a turning point in police reform, the detailed sentencing guidelines, creating frameworks for addressing systemic racism, while establishing clear consequences for officers who abuse their authority. National media broadcast live as Judge Martinez outlined sweeping departmental changes, mandatory bias training, enhanced oversight, and zero-tolerance policies for discriminatory behavior, her ruling becoming a blueprint for police reform initiatives nationwide. The courtroom erupted in controlled chaos as Miller was processed for transport, his former colleagues watching silently while their corrupt brotherhood crumbled beneath the weight of justice. Reporters rushed to file stories about the historic verdict that would reshape law enforcement. Tyson's quiet nod of approval carried more weight than thunderous applause. His dignified response to justice served becoming a powerful symbol of how society could address systemic racism through legal channels rather than violent confrontation. Las Vegas transformed in the wake of Miller's conviction, the city becoming a model for police reform as departments nationwide studied the case, seeking guidance for their own institutional changes, while Tyson emerged as an unexpected champion for accountability. The champion's decision to host a charity gala promoting police reform drew national attention as civil rights leaders, celebrities, and progressive law enforcement officials gathered to discuss systemic change, their conversations focusing on practical solutions, while Miller adjusted to life behind bars. Police academies across America incorporated footage from the incident into their training programs, Tyson's response becoming a masterclass in de-escalation, while departments rushed to implement new policies preventing racial profiling and enhancing accountability measures. Former victims of Miller's harassment found their voices emerging to share similar stories, each testimony strengthening calls for reform, while departmental databases tracked officer behavior, identifying potential problems before they escalated into criminal conduct. The Las Vegas Police Department underwent complete restructuring, establishing civilian oversight committees, implementing bias recognition training, and creating transparent complaint systems that prevented cover-ups, while Miller watched his corrupt legacy crumble from his prison cell. Tyson leveraged his platform to advocate for meaningful change, his measured approach drawing support from both law enforcement and civil rights organizations as police departments nationwide adopted reforms based on lessons learned from the incident. National police unions faced pressure to acknowledge systemic racism, that traditional defensive stance crumbling beneath overwhelming evidence, while reform advocates used Miller's case to push for enhanced screening of officer candidates and continuous monitoring of behavioral patterns. Security footage from the incident became required viewing in de-escalation training sessions, Tyson's controlled response, teaching new officers about maintaining composure while dealing with confrontational situations, the champion's dignity under pressure, becoming a model for professional conduct. Miller watched from prison as his actions catalyzed the changes he'd fought against, his conviction serving as a powerful reminder that no badge could shield corrupt officers from justice, while departments across America embraced accountability and transparency. The case established legal precedents for prosecuting police misconduct, creating clear pathways for justice, while Tyson's example proved that sometimes the strongest response to hatred involves choosing wisdom over force, his legacy extending far beyond the boxing ring into lasting social change.